On that note, dear delegates, it's time for the interesting cross-border panel now at the CIO 200. Just a recap on what the CIO 200 cross-border panel is all about. As we all know, started in 2020, the CIO 200 cross-border concept shot to fame in a very less time. The unique flavor is that this panel brings around us extraordinary CIOs from four different countries, four different geographies. They come together to share their views about how technology has been a game changer for their company and the country IT outlook as a whole. The cross-border panel actually brings out the concept of technology has no barriers and no boundaries. So to start the cross-border panel of Saudi, I would like to call upon our four key panelists who are joining us today. Anil Menon from India, he is the head of information technology at Lulu Group. Nitin Bhargava from UAE, he is the COO at Emirates Investment Bank. Sanjeev Madavi from Oman. He is the Chief Digital Transformation Officer at Khimji Ramdas. And Iftikhar Arif from Pakistan. He is the General Manager, Information Technology and E-Commerce at Muller and Phipps Pakistan Private Limited. The cross-border panel would be moderated by Arun Shankar, the editor at GEC Media Group. Welcome to all the panelists, and I would like to hand it over to Arun now. Thank you.
So thank you, Anushri, for the various introductions. Good day, everyone, and Assalamu alaikum. Continuing with the success of 2020, where we hosted 104 leading CIOs in our cross-border panel discussions, we are pleased to move forward with this initiative in 2021 as well, inviting the top CIOs to participate in our cross-border panel discussions. As part of this World CIO 200 Roadshow 2021 Saudi Arabia edition, and on behalf of Global CIO Forum and its sponsor partners, I welcome the panelists here with me to this cross-border panel on leadership in the post-pandemic era and what will drive leadership in this post-pandemic recovery phase for the next 12 to 24 months. So let us begin this discussion with the panelists here. We will have 3 rounds of discussion across the next 45 minutes. And let's begin with the first question, which I would like to now ask Anil Menon, who's at Lulu Group of India, to answer. Now, Anil, you have a pretty long baseline of engagement with Tata, Starbucks, Trent, Hypermarket, and before that, software and business, right? So you must have obviously been pretty observant of the changes happening in your industry. And if you look back in this last 18 or 24 months, which were the specific technologies and applications that you noticed that organizations in your market segment have used to build agility, resilience, leadership? You know, there must have been something that they were focused on. Go ahead, Anand.
Thank you, Arun. And rightly said, the India market was equally hit as the global market. Depending on the maturity of the industry and different sectors in the industry itself, we can break this up into 3 parts, right? The customer, the employee, and the IT, the data, and so on and so forth, the technology part of it. As per the maturity, as I said, industry has gone through a tremendous digitalization, if I have to use that word, in all these 3 sectors. One, from the customer point of view, they strive to make sure that they are at the doorsteps with the customer, or as per the needs of the customer, depending on either you're from the grocery, fashion, fast food, so on and so forth, right? So each industry, each sector worked upon mounting or climbing onto a platform which can make them more, the reach increases. New channels has been looked into. That's from the customer point of view. While doing this, we are also making sure that the employees are safe, because customers, the first question which arises in this pandemic was, is the person who's delivering it to me vaccinated, and is he safe? Is he sanitized, and so on and so forth, right? So retailers worked on all these 3 fronts, Customer from going onto the platform, digital platform, looking at the maturity, making sure you reach the customer at the place where he wants it to be. Secondly, from an employee standpoint of view, two factors from an employee standpoint of view. At the store sector, they made sure that the employees are safe, the environment is safe, the ecosystem is safe for them to deliver to the customer, thus bringing the trust for the customer. The second part of the employee was while you're working from home. Suddenly, working from home became for everyone a critical factor, right? So people also looked at how can you make sure that the EX tech, if I have to call it, the employee experience tech, had been taken care of in terms of educating them how to use when you're working from home, or what should be the way of working, and so on and so forth. And the third part is the technology part, which is crucial. A quick leadership thoughts went through saying that which of the applications are critical at this point of time. Not everything was critical. The customer facing elements were too critical. So people who had their own data centers and silos, working in silos, has suddenly moved on to cloud. And not everything has gone to cloud, right? They took part of them to cloud so that it is accessible both to the employee per se and the customer per se. Secondly, they also collaborated with the startups and the who's who of the market at that point of time who can deliver this experience from a customer standpoint and employee standpoint. So largely, if I have to put it, this is the 3 or 4 factors which is done. And one critical factor overlaying all of this was data security. That was key at this point of time. That brought in a lot of elements into perspective. As we go along, we can dive into it and go in depth into it. That's more from there. Arun?
Very interesting, Anil. I just want to touch on the last point, data security. Was this the supply chain part? Was it the customer part? Was it the financial transaction? Which aspect of data security was getting highlighted at that time? Go ahead.
Largely two. You rightly pointed to largely two. One is a customer factor, one is supply chain factor. Customer factor because suddenly contactless payments went up, right? Data, we had new channels of acquiring data, customer data, or customer giving a consent to use that data. So attribute X moved to attribute Y. So making sure that while you're doing a contactless payments, you need to be sure all your securities are in place. Data was multiple folds. It just worked in because of the online channels, right? So this was the two factors, and the supply chain more from an inventory and delivery and standpoint of view, where data was heavily used, and data security. It's not that the industry was not ready. Industry was ready, but they had it in their roadmap. They just they fastened the whole process of data security and digitization.
Correct. Very interesting. So even in UAE, we saw a large emphasis on contactless payment and the move away from the cash. So even retailers who were slow on using these the machines, the mobile payment machines, they had to adopt it. Fantastic. So let's move to Nitin now. To you now. Long baseline with banking. I see essentially Emirates Investment Bank currently, then Mashreq Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and of course a movement away from technology to as a COO. Operational business. So quite an experience for you to have moved from technology to operations. Can you give us a summary on how things look to you in the banking and finance sector in terms of what they did to build resilience? Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So I think I'll start with the point you raised around moving from just IT to operations and IT. What I've seen in the past 30 years I've been in banking is that it works very well hand in glove. It works together, and a lot of what we're doing and one of the big things that banks are transforming themselves are into process automation. So you look at robotic process automation, look at NLP, NLG technologies, machine learning is really now it's no more unique. It's becoming a norm, and banks are moving towards artificial intelligence. In my current role, we are looking at assisted robotic advisory as well. So things like are moving forward, and there is more confidence. It's all been enabled, the last few years with the cloud adoption. The UAE is now very receptive to cloud adoption. Data residency rules are very clearly defined. Outsourcing regulation is defined. So that's becoming much more clearer for banks to manage a more distributed environment. And Anil touched upon a distributed workforce, right? A lot of work from home has happened in the last 18 months, and that gives, banking sector an ability to also have a distributed workforce across the world. Um, and I think a couple of things I've seen in the past, three banks I've worked in was the rapid adoption of the agile delivery, using whatever tools like Azure boards and all, so that you did not have to work towards bringing everyone together. It's actually a more virtual world now. So the adoption of agile in the last 18 months has also helped get the ball rolling in terms of the delivery and enhancement that's going on. Um, you're aware lack of travel did necessitate the the moving away from in person to having the trust to work remotely and all as well. But I think the big thing that I've seen, beyond all this is the evolution of the collaboration tools, right? We are sitting on Zoom here, we have virtual, you look at, the adoption of Microsoft Teams. Now, most of the organizations are adopting these technologies. You can record and play back. So I feel that is probably is a big game changer. And that's becoming a new norm of a distributed workforce as we move forward.
Thanks, Nitin. There's one interesting point just occurred to me, like generally offices to move the remote workforces, it's not so difficult because many employees work from home. But in the banking sector, when they are accessing very sensitive data, you have robust passwords, you have a perimeter fencing type of an approach, especially in the banks. How did you actually bridge that capability to? Was it a lot about technology, or was it a lot about processes, or was it a lot about policy? How did that actually happen? Go ahead.
So it's a good question, and the answer is mixed. It's basically led by technology. So when we started, especially if you look at traders, and there is a lot of data privacy issues as well, but that's on the customer side. I think it's taken care of. It's agnostic to who are working where, right? But when I look at an employee working from home, there is a potential of data leakage. The security of the of the infrastructure network and all is also important. So what we did was we looked at like a WAN. From a LAN, we extended it to a home LAN, but made it a WAN, WAN, so that we could bring the logins into our own firewall as if you're sitting in the office. It took us a bit of time, but it worked very well for us. I don't want to take names of the the vendors and all, but it was very effectively done by the team, and we extended it to a multi-location as if you're working behind the firewalls. So you're right, we're very important, and I think it just continues to grow, and you get the confidence from information security perspective that it's all secure.
Great, because we saw the call centers, we saw the branches reducing in operation. And it always struck me that if the tellers and all are going away, yes, you're talking about automated ATMs and other things like that, but there's a lot of customer service. The call centers were also being downsized. And then I used to receive calls from bank employees working from home. It always struck me like, how do you still manage that governance from people who are the own? So great takeaways over there. Now, moving to you, Sanjeev, sitting in Oman, I think you've been there for a long time. And essentially, as I can see, started with Bhavan Cybertech, managed a lot of technology solutions. So essentially, technology partner experience, and then moving to diversified group Khimji Ramdas. Now, from your point of view, what are the sort of technologies or stacks or solutions which came into this industry to ensure that there was resilience in the last 18, 24 months? Go ahead, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Arun. As again, very, very pleased to be part of the panel today. If I may summarize my experience of the last 18 months, almost 2 years that we are in the pandemic mode, I think I will sort of sum it down in 2 words, and it's about customer experience. I think this entire journey, as we have all been trying to classify, even in the panel today, is about moving from the digitization state, where we're trying to get the data into a digital format, into a digitalization state, where we have the processes automated, moving on to a digital enterprise. And eventually, the idea is again to have a real-time enterprise. That's what everyone's end goal is. Now, coming from a supply chain and logistics background, which unlike obviously what you mentioned, is where I have spent most of my last 25 years. Coming from a global supply chain background, we have the same set of issues that we have been tackling now, that we have been facing for the last 20 years almost. We had the advent of globalization, we had the distributed supply chains for economies of scale and factories opening up in China and all, and sort of, on a distributed mode. We had decentralization of processes, we had advent of outsourcing, BPOs, KPOs, synchronization of services. But the central theme behind that was always about information flow in an efficient manner. I think when we're trying to look at a global supply chain for material being sourced from China, delivered to a customer in the US or wherever else in the world, that is the core theme. And I think I'm trying to sort of cite one of the researches I came across from McKinsey recently, where it said that companies that invested in delivering a superior customer experience during the downturn especially, they emerged much, much stronger as compared to their peers in terms of economic rebound, where, of course, they had almost 3 times the average return on their shareholders' value as compared to the others who did not. What we did see during the pandemic, as you can imagine, there was a vaulting of the consumer behavior numbers. People who actually sort of accepted e-commerce as a norm, it jumped almost tenfold in a span of 90 days. It crossed the next 10 years forecast. So the scale up was very, very fast. And what we realized is the customers were all looking at the immediacy, the convenience, availability, safety of the digital experiences. So this sort of reset the entire expectations for most of the retailers. Khimji Ramdas being in predominantly in the retailer business, we have 450 brands that we are franchisees for. We had to sort of remodel our entire network around it, see how exactly we need to sort of function going forward. And what you sort of, I would say, I would definitely want to bring it down to the 5 foremost factors that have now emerged post the lockdown. And that basically tells you the technology that we need to focus on around either building of your internal focus via an efficiency, where I'm trying to sort of automate processes, as some of our panelists have already mentioned. And the second element is to look at a profitability pattern, where I'm trying to get an external focus, go to customers, try to sort that extra revenue base. And eventually both the models converge into a digital sort of enterprise that we have. But significantly, if I may sort of take about 30 seconds just to sort of wrap up my idea. What we're saying is we have seen customers switch their entire buying patterns, their purchase ideas, their preferences in terms of whom they used to buy things from. And we have now 5 areas that have come about. One is a cost focus, where you have a lower price and obviously the customer will switch for the want of a better cost. Convenience focus. We have had slightly very, very odd, I would say, parameters that have come out. There was a cultural and ethics focus, right? So organizations which retain their employees during COVID-19, sort of customers were also supporting those organizations so that the employees retain, their jobs. And if not, we also have a focus around, other areas, communities which were serving, COVID affected, customer base or special groups, be it elderly, people or people with disabilities. People were sort of trying to sort of emulate and sort of identify with those brands and those kind of experiences. So all in all, I think for me, it's all about customer experience. And I think the technology that has sort of aided that process, be it from an internal perspective or an external perspective, I think that for me has been the big, I would say, paradigm shift of the last 2 years.
Great, very interesting over there, Sanjeev, talking about price, convenience, ethics, community, and of course, looking at price, low price, high price, profitability. But one thing that strikes me in such a large group like yours, where was the main challenge? Was it on the incoming logistics part of it? So the outgoing, essentially to the retail, yes, we understand those were the sort of guidelines. But the incoming supply chain, what is coming in? Do I have to stock? Do I need to sell out? What should be the pricing? So even now we hear all these reports about, a container which was $1,900 from one end of the world to the other is now $10,000. Now, sooner or later, that price is going to come out. And how do you actually plan for that in such volatile conditions? Give us an idea about that.
I think we sort of go back to the basic tenets around retails and logistics. We have the 5 primary benefit areas that we concentrate on. First being non-productive time. Any process that does not add value, we need to sort of eliminate that or take it away as much as we can. Second is the focus on HSE and human and environmental friendliness. That is obviously very, very key and focus to the entire element. Then we look at the volatility And the volatility is where I say the customer demand can sort of scale up, scale down, switch sort of, multiples on a small period. So I think in order to build a resilient supply chain when it comes to retail businesses, there is no golden thread as we keep looking for. But I think it's all about how much shocks your supply chain can sort of bear without trying to let the customer know that you are in pain. Because eventually the customer has to see that we have a unified face, everyone from the retailer to the back-end supplier to the back-end IT system to the payment gateway to all the banking institutions and everyone involved in servicing their order for a Nike shoe or a Louis Vuitton first as maybe is rock solid and will deliver the goods on time. That promise is what we try to keep in utmost conditions, be it through technology and through human intervention as much as possible.
Great takeaway. How much shock can your logistics system supply chain take? Very interesting. So good lead into Iftikhar. Now you're also in the distribution and logistics. Muller and Phipps. Sorry, a long baseline over there. So give us an idea on your experience. How was it? How did you actually build the resilience in this distribution business in Pakistan, which normally is very challenging, but must have been much more in the last 18, 24 months? Go ahead, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Arun. Well, I am highly excited and agree with all my panel's reviews and comments. Well, being a part of a logistic company since last 21 years, first I would like to tell you about the Muller and Phipps. So you can give me a platform to elaborate the resilience and the way forwards which we have done so far. MNP is a leading distribution company in Pakistan, the oldest one. We were established in 1912. So far, we are dealing with around 52 companies. That means we are tapping 750 towns, serving around 100,000 customers, and the frequency is 35,000 per day. And in 100,000 customers, 40,000 are the pure pharmacies, through which around 5,000 doctors we are tapping on a daily basis. So that's the volume, that's the services we are carrying with respect to the consumer goods and the pharmaceutical products. And being a part of the distribution sector, as we all know that the logistics is an important part of our business plan. During the pandemic, minimizing distance without affecting the coverage was the challenge toward this end. So what we can do, what we did, that we have developed our in-house e-commerce platform that bridged the gap created by the lockdown situation. We called this solution Aapta, that means Destination U. We designed a unique online engine that provides all type of connectivity by using all the media. You talk about mobile phones, mobile application, call center, in-person, SMS, to serve our customers and partners. And with respect to the next part, that during this entire period, we were able to work with a zero sale loss. We're able to sustain, rather enhance customer confidence, and we're able to live up to our image of a retailer distributor. From the leadership point of view, I must say that the biggest contribution that we did not resort to layoff as a headcount managing strategy. Instead, we were able to create employment by starting home deliveries. So far, we have inducted 500 more people in our convoy. The size of the organization, 8,000 people. So you can easily imagine for the last 18 months, the biggest objective of our management that we have to provide 24 by services with uninterrupted and the quality products.
Okay, great. Very interesting initiatives over there, especially about making sure that the healthcare doctors and pharmacies remained well equipped over there. So let's go to the second round of questions, which will be a little bit more faster because we want to make sure we go through the third round also. So coming to you, Anil, obviously, technology is there for the internal customer. You need to be working very closely with business. The business are the people who actually experience the challenges and then they come to you for solutions. Give us an idea on how did your peers in the business effectively come to you with their problems, the pain points? What was the sort of collaboration? What was the sort of discussion that happened in order for you to take these large-scale decisions? Go ahead, Anil.
Thanks, Arun. Very rightly said, and if I have to say in simple terms, the definition of problems have suddenly changed. Previously, post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, it was more on day-to-day activities, what can be done, and so on and so forth, and on a daily stuff. Suddenly, they started talking about how can we automate processes, how can we simplify other processes. Majorly from the new term called a D2C has just sprung up in India, right? Everyone is talking about D2C now. How can we make it enabled? Because suddenly, while you may not call it omni-channel or unified commerce, but people are somewhere started playing that game of, you have an offline, you have an online, you have different channels and trying to match. And while you did this, you also started impacting your back officers, your processes, and so on and so forth. So now the peer group discussions are more healthier. When I say healthier in a very right term of it, saying that, what, why don't we take technology to a level where it can automate more. So RPA has become a normal way of talking, right? AI has become a way of talking. People are talking about data suddenly. People are talking security about data. Make sure that the customer knows about it. People are talking about MFCs suddenly. The store MFCs become suddenly, why don't we cater from our stores? So micro fulfillment centers have suddenly become a discussion. So the whole, what I'm coming to is the whole gamut of thoughts have suddenly changed. People are trying to bring in a lot of automations, make value of what data they had in a more precise manner, be more rather than being more reactive to nature, they're becoming more actionable to what they're getting, right? They're trying to getting the skill sets are going up. So all of this have been started. That's a level of discussion, and suddenly HR comes in and talks about employee welfare, well-being, wellness, because of this distributed ways of working, right? How do you make them motivated? How do you keep them, and so on and so forth. So the whole platform thoughts have started changing. If I have to say, there's a drastic shift. It's from the leadership. So if you tell me, Anil, are you happy now? Yeah, I'm very happy because IT guy. Now I get budgets. If I go and say about security, I get budgets. People are aware of it. So that's a drastic shift which we see across the industry, which is going on.
So very interesting over there, especially the part about an IT person getting briefed about the HR and welfare, and having to think about what solutions need to be there. If I can interpret what you said, but I just want to ask one question over here. During this time when things were challenging, were the problem statements coming to you? Hey, Anil, look, our sales have dropped 30% here. We need to find a way to pick it up, or was it something more closer to technology? I mean, were the business pain points transferred to you directly? Or did you start getting like a technology requirement? Look, you need to beef up the number of, accessibility of this application, this area. What were the sort of briefs that were coming to you?
Yeah, Arun, that was a mixed bag. Whilst particular functions came in with very straight away queries, we had a lot of operational team coming up with a couple of solutions, a couple of thoughts, a couple of ideas. Why don't we collaborate with someone who's there already in the market and they're doing something? Why don't you just hang on to them and then start delivering? Say, for example, suddenly PWA became a way of life. So people started talking, why don't you go jump on a super app? Why don't you have your own PWA? How soon can you get a PWA? There's a collaborative team running there. There are a couple of vendors who are doing a home delivery. Why can't you go with it? So that was the conversation started becoming more mixed bag. While functions which are more support in kind, if I have to call it so, was very drastic, saying that, what, can I see these numbers coming in? This channel is open up. Can I see what's happening? While the operations and the customer facing team, marketing teams started coming up saying that, while this channel is open, why don't you use this technology for more collaborative natures?
Understood. So exactly as you said, mixed bag, some of it here, some of it there, and then leaving you to take the initiative over there. Very interesting. Thanks for that, Anil. So coming to you now, Nitin, same question as I've been asking, that banking, very intricate. Obviously, you need to use a lot of decision making. I mean, technology is an enabler. You need to use so many parameters to decide which revenue service to push and how to optimize it. How was that actually done at your end? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I've been fortunate to join the bank to do a lot of wholesale technology transformation. So we had a two-pronged approach. And as one of this Sanjeev mentioned about customer experience, and second was operations efficiency. So from customer experience point of view, we have been working with our business partners, business unit heads, to define the customer journeys, right? Every customer or customer segment actually is not the same. So there is in some customer segment you need speed is of essence. Second, in others it is more accuracy or more controls is of essence. So we have private banking clients, they don't care about speed or real time updates on the statements. They would probably look at once a week or whatever. But if you look at a retail client customer, they want to know real time what's happening. So we have actually, with this technology refresh, we have marked the customer journeys. We've also looked at the operations efficiency, our processes, whatever's redundant, what we can, we have basically looked at the new platform, superimpose that with the processes, and we are redefining those. So removing the touch point. So that's where we talked about RPA and automation of the processes also come through. So it is all about the voice of the customer, voice of the process. But the big thing also that helped us is we have proactively engaged our vendors to be a part of this journey. That is always the case, but in these times, knowing how rapid things change and being in an agile world, there is no sign of the requirements and move forward. Here it is like you do one round and you want some changes. So it's very important that we get the buy-in, the trust of our vendor partners as well, and make them true partners in the journey. So that's been a big transition, at least what we have been trying to push here as well.
Great. We had an idea of these changing partnership models before the pandemic, but as you rightly said, I think you have to partner in order to get through it together. I mean, you can't just have it as a commercial engagement, needs to be a bit better. But one question which has struck me, we used to read, we came across quite a few things about the ability to change an application pretty rapidly on the basis of emerging customer data in the last 18 to 24 months. Was the application development team able to sync in terms of time to restructure the application, change the interfaces, the DevOps type of model? Were you able to push that in, or was this supportive? Who had to take the lead on this? Go ahead.
Absolutely. I think it's a very good question. What we call hyper personalization and creating of micro apps when you can bring things together. And what if the client doesn't want something, we can take those widgets out as well. So I've been doing that in my previous bank and here as well, just to make sure that we are offering our clients what they need and maybe what they want, and we push them towards that. There was a point raised around increasing more revenue lines and all that as well. So we are trying that as well, where we were able to look at the data analytics, predict that there would be a cash requirement given the the standing instructions, and we offer real-time overdraft facilities and all that without the client remembering all those things. So hyper personalization has become a norm. It will get more and more prominent as banking progresses, in my view.
Okay, great. So obviously more pressure on the technology departments and the IT heads to to find a way to meet the demands of customers. So coming to you, Sanjeev, now we obviously being part of the Khimji Ramdas, so many brands like you mentioned, a lot of business discussions, a lot of business pressure. How did this actually work with you in your organization, or let's say in your sector of distribution across retail and distribution across Oman? Go ahead.
I think the personal story, which I would definitely want to narrate here very, very quickly, is the fact that we had to undergo a complete branding change. I think this is where we see the strong impetus for technology teams to actually go and engage with their own internal customers, their business partners, their channel partners, who definitely are their immediate sort of customers whom they're trying to service. We had to change our branding. As you can see, we've changed from Khimji Ramdas Information Systems, I'm sure, which would have been an app title for the last 20 years, and we've gone now to KR Digital. Said we have to change the face. Number one, we have to let the customers know that we understand them. The worst thing that always happens to technology folks is that we go on our own technological sort of, jargon world, and business will start yawning after 2 minutes, and they don't know us and we don't know them. So the second important change is to let them know that we are not technical people. We are techno-functional consultants. We come with that necessary mix of technology orientation and business, operational expertise and understanding. That tells them very clearly that we understand them, we can speak their language. And most importantly, for any customer, be it external or internal, the biggest focus will always remain as a value for money exercise. So the IT investments until date have always been sort of shrouded in that mystery element. Saying, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of thousands or nearly millions as may be on ERP implementations, or like you said, we have RPA, which is the current flavor. I started working on this 20 years ago when we had something called as business process management systems, and it was essentially offering the same thing. So again, we were sort of revisiting the same thing of the last 20 years. It's old wine in a new bottle. So we have the same ideas about business process automation. We have business process execution rules. We have business activity monitoring, and we have enterprise service bus. All the four things that connect what? It all connects data. We have to bring the ROI condition so that the business understands we are working on trying to give them the maximum value for the money they're going to spend. And second, and more importantly, it's all about data and information, how we convert data to information to insights, and how insights will actually help them take better decisions on their business parts. So all in all, the concentration has been heavily on data management, data analytics. In order to get better data analytics, we said we need to have enterprise integration, which means we need to connect with different systems that are out there. And we need to have an underlying business process management layer, which actually becomes the foundation glue for every single system, be it an ERP, CRM, operational system, IoT sensors as may be, and bring them all together so the data universe is now sort of, under a single data lake structure. So I think for us, the journey has been very, very successful. We have been able to sort of convince most of our internal businesses out of the 50 businesses that Khimji Ramdas owns. We have 46 of them on a very firm standing. Says we are with you. We understand that we are talking the same terms and that we can work on all these initiatives. The whole idea, if I may sum up again in a sentence, is about trying to deliver an AI-based, a technology-based experience, which is as close to natural human engagement. And that's what the end customer, the consumer outside of the business wants to see. And that's where what we have to work together towards delivering.
Great. I especially like the last part you mentioned where, the engagement, technology engagement matches the business intuitiveness, and, everybody feels comfortable about how they're working and they're enabled by technology. So great stuff over there, Sanjeev. And I'd like to now move to you, Iftikhar. Same question now. You mentioned quite a few interesting things in the first question, which was essentially about the emphasis on the people internally, the mobile applications, all that. But how did this actually come internally? Any of the operational heads, business heads sitting and talking with you? Go ahead, Iftikhar.
Right. Well, as we are know that the biggest noise of 2020 is COVID-19. Well, a few years back, when we thought about 2020 or 2021, we thought about flying cars, robot-driven healthcare, space tourism, but the reality of 2020 proved out to be much different. If you recall correctly, in March, we were reported first case of COVID in Pakistan. And very early in the pandemic environment, we realized that reducing distance was the main challenge. So we developed an award-winning ecosystem by the name of Aaptak, which provides an alternate order booking system. Just to give you a quick update about the Aaptak, it is not just an traditional marketplace for the e-commerce player. Rather, it's bringing the concept of Uberization to Pakistan. The application connects B2B, B2C, and the new thing is that C2C. That's a customer to consumer. That device to allow transaction between retailer registered with the MNP or otherwise to the consumer. So we provide the additional muscles to our customers, 100,000 customers for the delivery facilities. So every customer now is treated as an e-commerce player. So we brought this idea in Pakistan. In addition to this, we enabled the work from home environment to all our background workers. So much so that we even set up a call center at our employees' home for patient facilities and the first, the doctor facilitation. Our logistic and pharma teams work closely with IT toward process re-engineering. That basically was meant to change the people mindset about the deliveries. Now we can easily say that we have shifted our major trade sales on the e-commerce side in Pakistan, and that's the biggest challenge. Uh, but initially we thought that it's all about the first wave or second wave, but now it's a new normal, and the dependency of the e-commerce platform is increasing on a daily basis.
Great. Great initiatives are there, quite interesting. And now I'd just like to move to the last question because time is going to run short. And in this, I just like everybody to give 1 minute answer. And the question is very simple. That we heard a lot about the types of decisions which have been done in the last 18, 24 months. A lot of technologies picked up in a haste, but some amount of streamlining, operational process improvements need to be done now so that you're using the foundation to move forward into the next 2 years. And if that is the case, what is the key initiative or what is the key technology, or what is the key streamlining that needs to be done at each of the technology heads to ensure that things move forward? So I'd like to come to you, Anil. A short answer, any key single initiative which is the most important that's going to take you forward in the next 18, 24 months? Looking forward, what's done is done. You've come through great. Now, how do we actually move forward in an efficient manner? Over to you, Anil.
Yeah, Arun, just one word. If it is just one word, is AI. All through AI. AI on whatever you're talking about. You're talking about data, AI on processors, AI on whatever, whichever processor you want to put it. So AI will drive a long run, and an RPA underneath it will seal it out.
Great, great answer, Anil. I'm glad that retail is still looking at AI as one of the key, most important decisions over there. Nitin, coming to you, again, the banking has transformed tremendously in the last 24 months. Outlook is still good. Its systems are very robust. But if you have to clean up any area and prepare for the next 18, 24 months, so what would that be? Go ahead, Nitin.
So I'll take a different tack beyond AI and automation. I think the whole thing is about distributed workforce. To get a world-class workforce working for you, and I read somewhere about hybrid workplace, right? The main thing is how do you manage fatigue? How do you manage the productivity, right? How do you keep the knowledge base up to date, right? The stickiness of the employees, because there is a lot of attrition. I'm seeing in the hubs, there's the 30-40% attrition in India, for example. How do you keep the cost base more slimline and efficient? So I think the workplace, the way it is going to be very important, and beyond technology and beyond everything else.
So very, very interesting. And thanks for that tangential outlook. Definitely, people is going to be key challenge. I mean, everybody is burnt out, stressed, overstressed. You need to find the best optimum way to keep going. Some of the organizations want to come back into office, some don't. Some are going to be hybrid, like you mentioned, Nitin. So a very, very valid point. Great one over there. Moving to you now, Sanjeev. Your take. I mean, a lot of work happening. You mentioned business processes and insights and a huge amount of initiatives over there. But going forward, where is the cleanup operation at your end? Go ahead.
I think I'll probably just break it into two quick halves. Number one, it's all about data, it's all about information. We have to help the business take the right decisions and in the most fast and effective manner. So it's all about how much processing you can do for data. You have to build a corporate data lake, bringing structured and unstructured resources together so that data analytics can actually churn out something meaningful as an insight. Second, and more critically, if I may say so, the number of initiatives and the kind of technologies are pretty much going to be the same. It's going to be all about enterprise applications, DevOps apps, about enterprise applications, IoT sensors and the like. The difference lies in the way we construe them, whether it is an efficiency-driven initiative or whether it's a profit-bearing initiative. If it's a profit-bearing initiative, something that brings new money onto the table, it's definitely helping business, trying to take away that pain about, shelving workforce, reducing the workforce, or trying to look at cost-cutting measures, but instead improve your top line, grow, as well as help everyone else along the chain grow, including customers, including employees.
That's a really great insight, profits versus efficiency. I mean, definitely money is important. Definitely operations is important, and the continuing emphasis on data at your end. Great insight over there. Iftikhar, last in the line before we close, what is the cleanup operation? What are the initiatives, top initiatives you think are going to be happening at your end, your industry, whichever? Go ahead, please.
Right. Well, first, I don't call this as a recovery phase. Rather, it's a phase in which we have identified and coming to terms as a new normal. For me, digital transformation is the name of the game. Whether you talk about the data, whether you talk about AI, BI, ML, and we are firm believer that if you have a data and if you want to use in a right way, you have certain tools in place that helps you to generate, transform this data into the complete information. That's my take.
Interesting. So you'll continue to looking at data. A lot of the initiatives are in place, continue to transform the organization. I think very interesting. Your momentum is already built in. You seem to be pretty confident that you're heading in the right direction. Is that it, Iftikhar? If I can summarize? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Go ahead, please.
Because, you know, the distance is the main key. Like I already mentioned this thing. Now the patients and the customers are more relying on the online information. If you have the right information about the patient, you can serve it. If you have the right information of the product, then you can easily deliver on the doorstep. So basically, data is the key. And if you want to use in a right way, you can not only increase your profitability, but it also create an impact on the economy as well.
Fantastic. So I hear across all the four panelists a lot about data, a lot about the people, a lot about the efficiency, a lot about continuing some of the initiatives that have been taken. So absolutely brilliant key takeaways and wonderful discussion. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. So we'll need to start closing up. And with that, I would like to say thank you to everybody at the end of this cross-border panel discussion. But before that, on behalf of Global CIO Forum, the World CIO 200 sponsor partners, and the panelists here, Anil Menon, Nitin Bhargava, Sanjeev Madavi, and Iftikhar Arif. I thank all the online attendees sitting through these 45 plus minutes of absolutely engaging discussion. Look forward to seeing everyone once again. Goodbye, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
It's a pleasure.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.